Statement, please.
Alright, so let me set the scene here. It is an alien movie that takes place somewhere in the prequel part of Alien 2. So we're on the planet that has been infected by the aliens before the colonial marines have arrived to take everyone out. We have Brad Pitt as our star action hero, and we have Willem Dafoe as something of a villainous character at the beginning. Brad Pitt is a security guard of some variety. Willem Dafoe is a scientist who lives aboard on the planet. We see, at first, Willem Dafoe is aware of the alien infestation but doesn't tell anyone. Brad Pitt happens to work as a guard in the lab. And slowly, Willem Dafoe realizes about the halfway point of the movie that this has gone wrong, this is a terrible idea, and that they're all going to die. At this point, he's stuck with Brad Pitt. And at the final bit of the movie, Brad Pitt has a wife that dies pretty quickly on, in a very funny way. Brad Pitt's wife dies comically. The real comedy here is the fact that Willem Dafoe and Brad Pitt, who at this point have given no inclination that they might be homosexuals, have the most beautiful love that comes toward the end of the movie.
Alright, that's time for opening. We can continue it later on in the
Will
fight.
do.
Up next is Leo. He's going to pitch his movie. Leo, take it away.
Okay, it's going to be hard to go against. I can only imagine what Elaine's going to say. Okay, so we're going to set it before the events of the first Predator. And we're actually going to set it a bit in the past. This is going to be around the 50s, I would say. Bradley Cooper, a white man. Lupita Nyong'o, an African-American woman. They are going to fall in love. And listen, at the time, this was not something that was very accepted, right? This is we're going to have like a very... it's an interracial couple that are very madly in love with each other, but they can't you know, like be public and stuff, and they feel ostracized in their own society. So they decide to escape to the woods, and in the woods they find a baby predator. And they're like, what do we do with this? And in society's eyes, they're like, this is a monster. But they understand in their eyes that they are viewed as monsters by society too.
Alright, pretty good opening statement.
Coming of age. I was getting there.
Coming of age, alright. Now for Elaine's opening statements. Elaine, take it away.
I'm going to be brief. I don't really think I need to say that much here. It's erotica. It's Toy Story. Meryl Streep, you know, she's a little bit older. She teaches a not quite young anymore Leonardo DiCaprio how to love again. And it's got everything middle-aged women love. Nostalgia, erotica, and Meryl Streep. Yeah.
They're toys.
Toys.
Alright, they're toys.
One of their own, but you know.
I'm calling Jesus.
Good time. Are they toys or are they not toys?
No, they are, but you know, like in the sense that like Woody is kind of his own.
Oh my God.
That's
I'm calling Jesus.
So that is right. Leo's going to have a Woody from Meryl Streep in this movie.
I know what?
Leo's going to have a Woody. Not you.
Alright.
Alright. Fighters, fight it out. Starting now.
Alright, Leo, I think we need to come to an agreement that we both need to finish ours, so we'll start with mine.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, go ahead.
Alright, so the romantic comedy part comes in from the fact that Brad Pitt and Willem Dafoe are both married at the start of this film. Both of them are comedically bumping into each other involving their wives as the alien outbreak starts to tear things apart. Like, each of them like has one of those moments where it's like, is this going to happen? And then it doesn't. And then that's when Brad Pitt's wife dies. And then he's obliterated by that. He really did love his wife. But Willem keeps his wife. He's not a very big fan of his wife. So as the film progresses, and finally they come together, toward the end of the film, and that's when Willem Dafoe's wife is actually infected with an alien. And then Brad Pitt has to kill her. And in that moment, they come together.
Literally.
Brad Pitt murders Willem Dafoe's wife, and then they have Congress.
Alright. Yeah, whatever you want.
Some Woody Allen type shit right there. Anyways, okay, so they're gonna find this baby in the forest that, again, society, and like for movies we look at this, it's like a monster. Like in their eyes, at the time especially, it's like, oh my God, how could we ever love this? But they understand what it means to be ostracized, so they raise this kid and they teach him to love, and it's a representation of what they are looked at like in their society and what an interracial child has looked like. And it's going to be written by Spike Jonze because he Oh, sorry. Anyways, well, it's not accurate, but yeah. So then it's going to be about the kid growing up, and he's going to be in a society that does not accept him. Society abandons him and treats him like shit. Yeah, and then he's going to overcome adversity. It's the classic story, but it's like an out there allegory. It's going to be like nothing you've ever seen, especially. I think it's going to be great. It's going to be so lovely and like touching. It's going to be such an interesting direction for the Predator franchise, and again, it's going to be really meaningful.
Gotta go. Okay, so for more plot details, because that's what we all need. But you know, every story needs a good setup. And so Meryl Streep, she's a sad, kind of lonely woman. She runs a little flower shop, right? Leonardo DiCaprio comes in every day to get his girlfriend flowers, right? And then one day, she notices that he's not coming in, and he's like walking by, and he's like crying. He's all upset because his girlfriend broke up with him. It's like a whole thing. And she's like, "You've got a friend in me," right? So we have this gorgeous musical number, right? They have an amazing connection, and then this carries over into eventually an erotic performance of "You've Got a Friend in Me" with the whole gang.
Who the fuck wants to see that?
Complete with the whole gang!
This is like
it's got Meryl
10-minute
Streep and Leonardo DiCaprio, so it's Oscar bait.
Obviously. You're gonna find this.
Let me break down these movies before we get to see them. All right, this one is a horror show. This is clearly a horror movie that we're describing here. But more than that, getting to Leo's, I was following Leo. Right up until you said that they find a predator. What? Who now?
Exactly.
Why? Why would they find a predator and be like, "This is our baby"? Why not just let the black woman have a baby? What's wrong with having a mixed kid?
Well, it's an allegory for that exactly, because when we watch a movie like that now, we're like, yeah, a mixed kid, of course, like, what's the problem? But at the time, it's representation. This was something that was looked at as like, oh my god, like, it's disgusting, whatever, like, it's awful. You guys get what I mean. And so,
it's coming out now, not that. Me, I said
We're
that.
pitching movies here right now.
I think we are.
Still, it's gonna be
Two. Do you think that it's so bad that the alien would be looked upon more favorably than a mixed kid?
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it was. Okay, listen. I was told it had to be a Predator movie. I'm working with what I got here.
Just make it a prequel to the Predator movies. Why is he a badass in the film? Why is he so gung ho won't talk to anybody?
Because it's a movie that is taking this genre that is kind of. I guess it has some substance to it a little bit, but it's kind of just brainless action when you really look at it, and it's adding this emotional and this important like background to it. And then when you watch Predator, it improves all of the other movies.
I mean, I don't have much to say against yours besides to say that mine is better. A generation who has grown up on Toy Story, right? They're at the next stage in their lives. They're ready for what's coming next. There's a generation of like adult women who had to go to the Toy Story movies with their children, and they're tired of it, and they want something for them now.
Right, wait.
This is for you.
To call a fight with the fighters each. The fighters have a chance to state their final points in the final conclusions.
Okay.
Or the conclusions.
Yeah.
Bradley, you go first because you began first.
Let me describe why this movie's going to be good. I'm telling you, you're expecting like an alien movie, and it's a rom-com from the start. Like, it's got all the setup of the Alien movie, right? With the whole, like, describing of the characters. You got the one guy who's kind of sinister looking, but you can't quite place him whether or not he's a villain. And funny enough, you think he is once you get into the second act, but by the time the third act starts, you find out he really actually wasn't a villain. He's just kind of sad. His marriage was failing, and it turns out that he was gay the entire time and just didn't know it. And really, that's really what this movie is. It's an allegory for closeted homosexuality. And it's told through the comedy of two men who don't really, two men who are currently married. But then we get into the fact that it's under an apocalypse from the aliens. I mean, it writes itself. It's jokes beyond jokes beyond jokes. I mean, who has ever thought of a rom-com where people get obliterated by xenomorphs? It's evolutionary, folks. It's evolutionary.
Great point. All right. Now, Leo, your closing statements.
Okay, so the shit that Elaine's describing only exists, you know, it's probably somewhere like deep corners of Pornhub we need to go there. But I just, this is gonna taint the franchise in the worst of ways for all these like children, all these people that grew up with it. It's just gonna be disgusting. Disney's gonna sue you. It's gonna be terrible.
It's going to be produced by Disney.
Hey, excuse me, this is my closing statement. I don't think the fact that this is set in the Alien franchise is really doing that much thematically for Bradley's film. I don't think so at all. I think that we're actually using the Predator franchise and we're making something meaningful of it. I just think that like this setting is the perfect allegory to describe like a horrible part of human history, and it's showing you that like. And don't judge a book by its cover, you know, nobody's actually a monster, it's how you're raised, and it's a coming-of-age story, we're going to see him raised correctly. It is, that's what it's been this whole time. Okay, anyway.
Time, alright. Elaine, finish up with your
interjections.
Sit up.
Okay. Okay, first of all, to address Leo's point about the Alien franchise not adding that much to Bradley's, I don't think the Predator adds much to yours. I think yours is just a modified Horsey Racerhead.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Okay. But just think about the audiences that this film would bring in, right? You've got the Toy Story crowd, you've got the 50 Shades of Grey crowd, and you have the Meryl Streep, Leonardo DiCaprio, like, you know, like newsroom drama, Oscar bait kind of crowd. All of them coming together for one big, like, generation uniting, like, transcending film. Legendary. That's all I got.
All right. Yeah. Great job, guys. Great job with what you guys have given. Now we're going to vote. You guys know the drill. Let's get to it.
Why did I
Oh my god.
And the setup was great right up until I got